In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, July 26th, here in South Korea. The remains of 7 Korean soldiers are returning home from Hawaii today as South Korea commemorates the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement that put an end to active combat on the Korean Peninsula. Economists at the International Monetary Fund say the local economy is set to see a 1.4% expansion this year, down from an earlier projection of 1.5%. Meanwhile, government officials and ruling party lawmakers vow to hammer out a framework outlining measures to better protect teachers within classrooms and to ensure a safe learning environment for all. The International Monetary Fund believes the Korean economy will expand 1.4% this year, slightly lower than its earlier estimate amid prolonged external uncertainties. Our Lee Kyung-eun explains.
The International Monetary Fund cut its 2023 economic growth outlook for South Korea on Tuesday to 1.4%, down 0.1 percentage point from its previous estimate of 1.5% in April. The Washington-based organization cited uncertainties facing South Korea from both home and abroad, including global monetary tightening measures and weak export figures. The latest forecast is on par with the South Korean government and the Bank of Korea's outlook of 1.4%. However, the Asian Development Bank last week lowered the country's growth outlook to 1.3%, down 0.2 percentage point from its previous estimates. Despite the downward revision of South Korea's economic growth forecast for this year, the IMF kept its estimates for 2024 at 2.4%. In the meantime, the IMF revised up its 2023 global economic growth outlook to 3%, a 0.2 percentage point from its previous estimate. The upward revision comes on the back of the recovery in the service sector, its U.S. debt ceiling woes, and abated concerns over a crisis in the banking sector. However, the IMF warns that the global economy is facing lingering challenges despite near-term resilience, adding the countries around the world should remain their monetary tightening policies. Yoon, Arirang News.
And this month's inflation forecast by the Bank of Korea stands at 3.3%, the lowest in 14 months. Now, this is an on-month drop of 0.2 percentage point and comes amid the ease in consumer price index, which slowed to 2.7% on year in June. But the central bank on this Wednesday underscored uncertainties going forward, given the higher utility bills and crop prices in light of the recent rain-related repercussions. Also this month, the composite consumer sentiment index improved to 103.2, up 2.5 points on month, reflecting a greater sense of economic optimism. Findings for the month of May show the number of newborns dropped below 20,000 for the first time since authorities began collecting relevant data. Our Moon Hye-ryun covers this concerning reality.
South Korea's population crisis continues as birth rates continue to fall. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the number of births plummeted to just under 19,000 in May this year. This is the first time the figure has fallen below 20,000 for the month of May since data was first compiled in 1981. And with just under 29,000 deaths in the same month, the population saw a natural decline of nearly 10,000, the highest so far this year. It's the 43rd consecutive month that the country has seen a natural population decline, while the number of births has fallen on year for more than 7 years straight. For May, the number of births fell by over 5% compared to the same month last year. By city, only 3 cities, including Daegu and Ulsan, saw increases in the number of births, whereas 14 other cities, including Seoul and Busan, recorded decreases. The number of registered marriages saw an increase with over 17,000 recorded, up 1% compared to last year. The number of marriages had been on an upward trend in South Korea since August last year as a result of eased COVID-19 regulations enabling people to host larger gatherings. However, the trend ground to a halt in April, falling by more than 8% on year. A spokesperson from Statistics Korea said further observation will be needed to see whether the dip in marriage figures for April was an anomaly or whether the effect of eased regulations had finally worn off. The number of divorces in May also rose, increasing 0.3% on year. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
A parliamentary task force has been launched to support relief efforts amid the damage caused by the latest torrential downpours and to draw up stronger measures against natural disasters. Now, 4 members of the ruling People Power Party and their 4 counterparts from the opposition Democratic Party of Korea agreed to promptly pass bills necessary for damage response to facilitate recovery operations in affected regions. Now, lawmakers from across the aisle also stressed the importance of a new disaster-related manual as Korea faces an unprecedented level of natural disasters amid climate change. A second meeting to address specific bills will take place next Monday. And the ruling People Power Party and the government in a meeting also on this Wednesday vowed to push for revision to current laws and to seek the introduction of new laws to better protect the rights of teachers at schools. The 2 sides will hammer out a framework that details guidelines for interactions with students as well as their guardians. Intentions to this end follow the shocking suicide of a teacher in her classroom last week here in Seoul. Among those present at today's meeting were PPP floor leader Yoon Jae-ok, Deputy Prime Minister and Education Minister Lee Ju-ho, and the Presidential Education Secretary Oh Seok-hwan. Korea has highlighted the need for transparent and effective monitoring of Japan's planned discharge of Fukushima radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean. Now, in a briefing on this Wednesday, Park Koo-yeon, the first deputy chief, that is, of the Office for Government Policy Coordination, said remarks to this end were shared by a delegation of Seoul's foreign ministry officials and relevant pundits during talks with their counterparts in Tokyo back on Tuesday. Japanese officials in response are set to voice their understanding about the concerns raised. A similar bilateral meeting has been planned for next week. China's Wang has been reinstated as the country's foreign minister this month, while the whereabouts of the previous holder of the post have yet to be shared. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji reports.
China has removed Qin Gang as foreign minister and replaced him with his predecessor Wang Yi. It's been less than 7 months since Qin was appointed to the post last December. China's state media reported that the country's top legislator voted to appoint Wang Yi as foreign minister during a session convened on Tuesday, with no reason for Qin's removal given. Qin had disappeared from public view almost a month ago, but the foreign ministry has provided no details about his status, raising speculation about his whereabouts. Earlier this month, the Chinese Foreign Ministry announced that Qin would not be attending the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting from July 11th to 12th in Jakarta because of health reasons. The ministry later declined to offer any further information about his absence and has since then refused to answer reporters' questions at daily briefings, while censoring details from official transcripts, including the initial comment about Qin's health.
What is the current situation with Foreign Minister Qin Gang? And when will he return to public duties?
I have no information to provide in regard to your question.
As the weeks passed with no explanation for his sudden disappearance, speculation turned to the possibility that he was being punished for stepping out of line politically. Then there were rumors of an affair with a female television presenter who was normally quite active on social media but had also suddenly disappeared. Qin, a 57-year-old diplomat and a trusted aide of Chinese leader Xi Jinping, had a quick rise to the position of foreign minister after serving as China's ambassador to Washington. He was last seen in public on June 25th during a meeting in Beijing with the Russian deputy foreign minister Andrei Rudenko. Qin's predecessor, Wang Yi, a veteran diplomat who was the foreign minister from 2013 to 2022, will step back into the role. Peunji, Arirang News.
The U.S. Secretary of Commerce has reaffirmed Washington's China policy that aims to balance the promotion of bilateral business interests and the protection of national security. Now, speaking at an event at the Wilson Center on Tuesday, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said the U.S. needs to do business with China wherever it can, but that the U.S. needs to protect where it must. Citing Disneyland and Starbucks, she pointed to the food, entertainment and health industries that can be promoted in China, while still working with U.S. allies to restrict Beijing's military technology. Currently, the US bans exports of advanced microchips to China for security purposes, saying China is using them for its military. Come Thursday, South Korea marks the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement, and the remains of 7 Korean soldiers who died in the Korean War are returning home today from the United States. The Korean military aircraft carrying the remains arrives at Seoul Air Base at around 8 this evening. The expected arrival follows an earlier repatriation ceremony at the Haekim Air Force Base in Hawaii, attended by Vice Defense Minister Shin Bum-chul and Admiral John Aquilino, the commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Following formalities to mark the arrival of the remains, they will be sent to the Defense Ministry here to undergo DNA testing for identification. The remains were sent to the U.S. after Pyongyang in 1990 resumed repatriating fallen soldiers who fought in the war. And as mentioned earlier, come Thursday, we mark the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement. And to commemorate this occasion, a group of war veterans from the US, the UK and Canada are here well over 7 decades after the Korean War. My colleague Kim Jung-sil shares their story.
Korean War veterans Edward Buckner, William Ward, and Colin Thackeray are visiting the country whose independence they fought for so many years ago. They were invited here by South Korea's Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs to mark the 70th anniversary of the armistice that ended the conflict. All are from different countries and have backgrounds, but the veterans share one thing in common. They fought for Korea, a foreign land. Having witnessed the tragedy of the war, the veterans expressed their impressions of Korean people during that time.
You had, just like I've always said, you had to be there to see it. But the Korean people deserve a hell of a lot because they're the heroes. They really were. To live this thing out, and it was just something else.
Yeah. Veteran William Ward added that he's proud of having fought for Korea and that he'll do it all over again. They took the moment to look for someone too. Canadian veteran Edward Buckner said he's looking for a Korean boy who used to clean his military tent during the war.
Do you remember his name?
Yes. I forget it. Cho Chok Song. I've had that picture all along.
The Canadian veteran also showed strong emotion when thinking back on the war.
I am so grateful that you took what you got and made it what you have. It's a beautiful country.
British-Korean War veteran Colin Thackeray expressed his impressions on being back in Seoul.
Coming to Seoul for the first time, and I was amazed because last time we saw it was flat.
Yeah.
Now there's just hundreds and hundreds of towers of apartment blocks, and I congratulate the Korean people on the success and the prosperity that they should now show.
War veteran and also something of a singer, Colin expressed his feelings about being asked to sing a Korean traditional folk song, Arirang, at a Korean War Armistice event to be held in Busan.
Arirang brings a lot of memories because I don't think many servicemen that served in Korea at that time don't know that song because it's very familiar to everybody. And when I was asked to sing it at the banquet tomorrow, I was very delighted.
The 3 veterans from different countries seem to have found a reason why they fought for Korea. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
And in related news, President Yoon Suk-yeol, for his part, met with dignitaries from Luxembourg and New Zealand, also here in the country, to commemorate 7 decades of ceasefire. Our senior presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
President Yoon Suk-yeol expressed hope for stronger ties with Luxembourg on Tuesday as he met with the country's leader Xavier Bettel, accompanied by a 93-year-old veteran of the Korean War, Leon Moyen. Meeting with Wang, who was wounded in 1951 but volunteered for a second tour, the president said the Korean people will never forget his courage and devotion to defending the freedom of a faraway country in the 1950 to 53 war.
처음에 총상을 입고 일본으로 후송이 돼서 치료를 받은 다음에 다시 또 참전하겠다고 해서 한국전에 부상 치료를 받고 또 참전을 하셨는데 어떻게 해서 그렇게 용기 있게 두 번이나 참전을 결심하게 되셨나요?
I was hospitalized for 4 months as I injured my left leg. There was a puncture in the bone. I couldn't use my legs.
The United Nations says Luxembourg sent 110 troops in total and lost 2 in action, with 17 wounded. In his talks with the Prime Minister, Yoon expressed his appreciation for Luxembourg's dispatch of its troops to defend the freedom and democracy of South Korea. To expand bilateral ties going forward, Yoon and Patel agreed to boost trade and investment and strengthen cooperation in space and quantum science. To facilitate greater communication, Patel noted that Luxembourg is preparing to establish an embassy in Seoul within the year. Touching on geopolitical issues, the two leaders agreed to work together to address North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. Patel added that Yoon's recent visit to Ukraine was highly significant and called for their continued solidarity and support for Kyiv. The South Korean president on Tuesday held another one-on-one meeting with New Zealand Governor-General Cindy Kiro, also thanking the country's veterans for their sacrifice and dedication. The back-to-back meetings were held ahead of a ceremony this week marking the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement that stopped active fighting between the two Koreas, which also coincides with UN Forces Participation Day on Thursday. Officials from some 22 nations have been invited to Seoul this week, representing the countries that fought alongside the South as part of the UN forces. The Veterans Ministry says the country sent a total of 1.96 million troops and medical personnel to aid the South. Among them, nearly 38,000 were killed and over 103,000 were wounded. Oseong, Arirang News.
And as part of the broader commemorative events, Korea and France back on Tuesday held their first joint air drills. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung covers that event.
South Korea and France held their first ever joint air exercises over the skies of Busan on Tuesday. The training comes as part of France's annual Pegasus 23 mission, which is aimed at increasing its military presence and influence in the Indo-Pacific region. The mission involves the deployment of tens of aircraft from France to the Indo-Pacific to promote cooperation with regional countries, especially with partners like South Korea.
Establishing a mutual understanding on issues in this region. It's a process of jointly preparing solutions in various fields, whether that be issues regarding security, the environment, or the pandemic.
The Korean Air Force participated with 3 F-15Ks and 2 F-16 fighters, while the French Air and Space Force fielded 2 Rafale fighters, the country's key fighter aircraft capable of performing various combat missions, including nuclear deterrence, as well as 1 A400M transport aircraft and an A330 multi-role tanker transport. These fighter jets from both countries also flew over the UN Memorial Cemetery in Busan to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice Agreement on Thursday. More than 40 French veterans who have dedicated their lives to the Korean War are buried in Busan's UN Memorial Cemetery.
We, the people of the Republic of Korea, have not forgotten the help provided by over 20 UN countries during the Korean War. I think it is very meaningful to have their descendants gather and train together.
The French Air and Space Force is on a 3-day stop in South Korea until Wednesday. Although it's a short period of time, both South Korea and France hope to further expand their military exchanges in the future by sharing each other's know-how and conducting joint exercises in various locations. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News, Busan.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Belgium, 8 men on Tuesday were found guilty of organizing a series of deadly bombings in the capital, Brussels, that killed 35 people and injured hundreds. The bombings took place in March 2016, targeting Brussels airport and a train passing by a metro station near the European Commission headquarters. It remains the deadliest terrorist attack in Belgium's history. Responsibility for the attack was claimed by Islamic State extremists. After an 8-month-long trial, the jury found 6 men guilty of murder. Another 2 were found guilty of taking part in terrorist activities. Some of those on trial were previously convicted for their role in the November 2015 Paris terror attacks. Turning over to Greece now, where a 3-day period of mourning has been announced after 2 airborne firefighters died when their water-bombing aircraft crashed while tackling wildfires on the island of Evia. Footage of the crash on Tuesday shows the plane flying low and dropping water over a wildfire. The plane then appears to hit a tree before disappearing into a ravine and exploding. According to the Defense Ministry, the pilots belong to the Greek Air Force. They were battling the blaze alongside 3 other aircraft and roughly 100 ground-based firefighters. The tragic event comes as Greece is battling a number of wildfires across the country, including on the islands of Rhodes and Corfu. Now, the torch design for the Paris 2024 Olympics and Paralympics was unveiled on Tuesday in the French capital. Its design imitates the reflection of the Eiffel Tower on the rippling water surface of the Seine River. And its round design is also meant to represent peace and equality between athletes. Made of recycled steel, the 1.5-kilogram torch stands 70 centimeters tall. Organizers say a limited number of these torches will be made to save resources. The torch will be lit in April at Olympia in Greece, the birthplace of the Games. It will then return to France for a torch relay starting on May 8th in Marseille, where 10,000 torch bearers will take turns carrying it before lighting the Olympic cauldron at the opening ceremony on July 26th. And finally, a ring designed and worn by the late rapper Tupac Shakur has gone under the hammer for $1 million. Auction house Sotheby's said that makes the ring the most valuable hip-hop artifact ever sold. The sale was part of a hip-hop auction meant to mark 50 years of the music genre. Designed to look like a crown, the ring is made from gold and studded with rubies and diamonds. It was last worn by Tupac at the MTV Video Music Awards on September 4th, 1996. Tupac was killed in a shooting in Las Vegas just 9 days later, at the age of 25. His killer was never caught, but police have since reopened the case and last week searched a home in the suburb where he was killed. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. After some heavy rain in north central regions this morning with rain advisories, things have cleared a little bit, but we still need to keep an umbrella handy as there could be 5 to 60 millimeters of passing rain in the forecast. It could come down hard once it starts to rain, so those taking a summer vacation near the water need to stay alert. Uncomfortable temperatures continued with a tropical night in most parts. A heat wave advisory has been issued pretty much everywhere in Korea, and rain will only add moisture to the air. Daily highs are similar to yesterday, but you might want to add a couple of degrees to what the thermometer shows. Drink plenty of water to stay hydrated. There will be chances of sudden showers through Friday. Then central regions and Jeollabuk-do province will see more showers this Saturday. Meanwhile, seasonally heat will try hard to move in between breaks in the rain. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Well, that brings us to the end of Wednesday's afternoon newscast. We have our panel session coming up right after this break, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.